given will and notion by soulcraft, and armoured in the baroque splendour of the sepulchre, the Ossiarch Bonereapers had the iron fist of Nagashazar. They were fashioned by Nagash to shatter the forces of the living, break the will of mortals, and established an eternity of undead domination. Across the vast distances of the mortal realms they travel, the emissaries of Nagashazar. They bring with them the inviolable decrees of the great necromancer, and to deny their demands invites annihilation. First amongst their numbers is Vokmortian, the master of the Bone Tithe. This immortal being is given license to utterly destroy any who defy Nagashazar, laying them low with blasts of sorcerous magic and necromantic powers granted unto him by his master. By Vokmortian's will have sprawling empires been crushed to dust and entire civilizations harvested overnight, so that their bones might be used to fashion new, undead warriors. Vokmortian is both envoy and overseer, statesman and conqueror. It is his duty to manage the Bone Tithe, the gathering of raw materials from which the new Ossiarch armies are fashioned. His acolytes are embedded within every necropolis, where they ensure that proper tribute is gathered from nearby vassals. It does not matter to Vokmortian whether these bones are taken by force or whether the subjected living choose to sacrifice their youngest and healthiest warriors in exchange for their continued existence. It only matters that the Ossiarch Bonereapers have sufficient resources to replenish their ranks and expand their osseous strongholds. When Vokmortian arrives before the gates of a mortal city to demand tribute, he does so alongside an elite retinue of Ossiarch warriors. The master of the Bone Tithe unfolds the decree of Nagash and reads it aloud in his terrible, rattling voice. If bones of sufficient quality are proffered, then the mortals may be allowed to live on for another season. If the inhabitants are belligerent enough to open hostilities, the bounty is simply taken from their ruined corpses in the aftermath of battle. In the presence of this terrifying effigy of death, few mortals are brave enough to make a stand. The severed heads of those who have made this grave error hang from Vokmortian's staff, still wailing and bemoaning their foolishness. As the foremost emissary of Nagash, Vokmortian channels a portion of the great necromancer's formidable might. What Vokmortian sees, so too does Nagash, and through his servant, the Lord of Shaiish, can manifest his vengeance. This connection is so potent that when the master of the Bone Tithe is denied, Nagash's lifeless icy gaze blazes through the spectral visage contained within Vokmortian's chest, striking those who have displeased him with heart-stopping terror. Should further incentive be required, Vokmortian wields the terrible power of the Shaiish Nadir and can smite his foes with life-stealing magic. As well as his other duties, Vokmortian acts as a conduit for the will of the great necromancer in all things. Nagash is the undisputed master of undeath, but although his power is that of a god, he is not yet omnipotent. The forces of death are disparate and varied in nature, and many have their own agendas. White kings, vampires, and masters of necromancy all march beneath the banners of Nagashazar when summoned, but scattered as they are, it is not always an easy task for Nagash to leverage his domineering will. given leave to pursue their own tyrannical ambitions, his lieutenants will gladly do so to the detriment of the great necromancer's own plans. As the bearer of the decree of Nagash, Vogmortian can command the obedience of even the mightiest undead lord simply by raising aloft the rune-marked scroll of Nagash's ear and issuing an imperative that they are compelled to obey. Each warrior of the Mortek Guard is a walking mass grave, given animus by the fractured remnants of dozens of warrior souls. In battle, they fight with unerring synchronicity, blades striking out with lethal precision to open throats and pierce hearts. When a new threat appears, an order is given and the line turns and reforms in an instant, facing the enemy with a wall of razor-edged netherite weapons. The Mortek Guard were constructed to fight Nagash's wars without question or hesitation, but its warriors are not unthinking automata. They are capable of individual thought and granted enough to ensure that they can fight unskillfully should their generals be cut down. This self-control, of course, is carefully tempered through the soul-crafting process to ensure total obedience and devotion to Nagash. Mortek warriors do not break rank for a moment, even as they stride to victory across a carpet of slain foes. Each warrior wields a netherite blade or spear, imbued with the magic of the Shaish Nadir. Even a minor wound from such a weapon can cause instant death, as the victim's soul is devoured by voracious necrotic energy. The magical process used to rend down and bind souls to create the Mortek warriors defies all of the laws of nature. The fractured remnants of the spirits that give animus to each warrior yearn to break free, but they are bound within a device known as a soul trap, a gem of vitrified grave sand. Should this stone be shattered, the warrior will collapse in a burst of spirit energy, its body crumbling apart. Indeed, this is the only reliable way to destroy a Mortek Guard. Should their soul trap gem survive intact, the warrior's form can simply be reconstructed from reinforced bone. Necropolis Stalkers, truly horrific beings that represent the apex of the soul-crafting art, are nightmarish, four-headed duelists utilized as elite shock troops by the commanders of the Ossiarch Bonereapers. Armed with a variety of deadly blades that they wield in four dexterous arms, they are an exception to the implacable style of warfare practiced by the majority of Ossiarch units. Instead, they move with unnerving raptor-like speed, releasing bone-chilling screeches as they slice their victims apart. Each face of the Stalker's quadrangular war mask is imbued with the essence of a legendary warrior. These combine to form a fourfold gestalt entity, each aspect of which can assume control of the Stalker's body at a moment's notice. These aspects are created from the souls of mighty sword fighters and champions, each of which possessed a specialism which has been greatly enhanced in death. Thus, a Necropolis Stalker can switch from a parrying stance to a frenzy of whirling blades in the blink of an eye. When not employed at the forefront of battle, these watchful sentinels maintain a ceaseless vigil over the necropolises of the Ossiarch Bonereapers, patrolling the streets of the lifeless citadels in hunting packs. Woe betide any beings foolish enough to attempt to breach the walls of such a city. Nothing escapes the many eyes of a Necropolis Stalker, and intruders are summarily dismembered, their bones removed to craft yet more undead warriors. Morghasts are among Nagash's greatest works, peerless killers, grimly majestic with their tattered wings and baroque armor, wielding spectral weapons that can rend soul and flesh alike. They are commonly seen fighting alongside the Ossiarch Bonereapers, lending their fearsome strength to Mortarch Catacross's military campaigns, and ensuring that the relentless march of his Grand Legions continues unabated. The terrible necromantic rituals that gave rise to the Morghasts bear many similarities to the processes of soul crafting and ossimancy employed by the creation of the Bonereaper warriors. These dread creations have been seen in greater numbers ever since the formation of the Shaiish Nadir, which has led many of Sigmar's generals to suspect that Nagash has granted the secrets of their construction to the Ossiarch Bonereapers. This is a grim prospect, for even in small numbers, Morghasts can wreak terrible slaughter upon their foes. The Morghast Archai are bodyguards and custodians who protect Nagash's champions in battle. They will defend their ward with single-minded ferocity, closing ranks and ignoring the rain of blows that deflect harmlessly from their ebon-wrought armor, then lashing out to lop heads with their spectral blades in reply. Should the need arise, the Archai stand ready to perform another task for Nagash, to utterly destroy any undead warlords who attempt to subvert or deny the great necromancer's will.